Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. As you guys know, we talked a lot about what happens when Bitcoin breaks out of descending resistance and how ETH is just right behind it in the way. What we're looking at right now is the potential of the next leg up for crypto that is going to finally see altcoins break out of over a 500-day accumulation and see one of the biggest rises in ROI that we're going to get over the course of this cycle. It's always in the very first impulse and breakout going into the next cycle that we have the opportunity of making the most money, because this is where the peak ROI is at. Anybody that's positioned early and ready to capture this next move is going to be able to make the most money. So I'm going to be breaking down all of my favorite altcoin cycles that I think are going to be breaking out in a big way so that we can go about making a little bit of money when it happens. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, here we are to start off today's video. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening depending on where you guys are in this amazing world. It's currently the morning for me before the market open, and so I figured today would be a good opportunity talking a little bit about the shorter time frames of the Bitcoin. Then we're going to be jumping into these big picture cycles and altcoins so that you guys know what I'm looking at. Now right off the bat, going off of a little bit of yesterday's video, we talked about why I believe that we are most likely going to see a pullback from this impulse. And then we ended up doing that. Now, here's the cool thing about what we just saw. Bitcoin corrected, but we instantly rebounded, and we're kind of just at this point where it's looking like Bitcoin showing a lot of strength, and it's looking like we may be making the next high to actually clear descending resistance. If this gets a buyback, and we are able to actually break up and go upwards of about 28K, I think that that sets in the potential of us actually breaking out of this descending resistance. And then from there, we might actually be getting that next leg up in this cycle. Overall, I am very bullish on Bitcoin because of the fact we have held this 25K level, and this is really the most important area in the chart. The fact that we held support here for basically a month, and then we also held support throughout this entire month of June too. So Bitcoin has proven that 25K is a strong support. And so as of now, the fact that we've retested it and now we're going back up to descending resistance, if we can actually get above this level, hit 28K and get a pullback around this descending resistance, I think that that is the earliest point of us actually going into our next high. This will be the early sign that, hey, Bitcoin's getting ready for that next impulse. Because what we're looking at here on a bigger picture basis, we're basically waiting for that final breakout to end the beginning of this bull run. In the same way that we watched it happen in 2019, the only difference is this is happening on a little bit of a longer degree of trend than 2019. And it's not quite as volatile as far as just going straight up in this big parabolic impulse. But what I find really interesting about our current consolidation is really just how similar it is. If we look at this final impulse, to me, the consolidation that we're seeing right now for Bitcoin is arguably the same sort of consolidation here. So when we're overlaying that final breakout and impulse, to me, it looks a lot alike. Now, obviously, it's going to be a little bit different. What we're seeing currently inside of this consolidation is a much longer period of time, right? Like I stated in one of my prior videos, we're currently looking at basically 180 days, 186 days now that we've spent spending consolidating between 32K and 25K. But really the point that I'm trying to make is it's been 180 days that we've been sitting on top of support of 25K. So the fact that we've spent this much time here, in my opinion, this is creating the foundation before our next major impulse. And that's why I kind of drew with you guys this comparison here, because I do see the same similarities that we saw. If you guys remember, at the beginning of this impulse, we had this 6K to 8K level. It was basically right here. This was the support of the descending triangle. And then where we ended up flipping it as support in our first breakout, we had this rounded bottom. And then the second that we got that first breakout and actually flipped that level as support, that's what took us into that final blow off top. And in my opinion, what we're seeing today with 6K, or what we saw in 2019 and 2018 with 6K being that important level where once it turned into support right here and we got that retest in that candle, that's what led us to that blow off top to finish that first impulse. In my opinion, it's not coincidental why we're seeing a similar type of price action at this same important level. Even though it's not 6K, it's 25K, this is our next level of demand on our chart, right? In the same way that Bitcoin spent all of that time consolidating in the descending triangle at like 6K, we've spent a lot of time consolidating at 25K because this was the resistance that we had at basically our bear market bottom. Even though we kind of saw this lower low, the top of the lower high has been an important level. And the second that we started the new bull trend, this was kind of where we ended up topping at as well. So if we're going to end up making the next big leg up in this cycle, in my opinion, it's all hovering around kind of the same sort of demand where if we turn this level into support, it leads to the blow off top. It'll be the same sort of thing right here. And that's what I'm leaning towards. And I don't find it coincidental that the PA actually looks really similar. I remember trading back in this time, and right over here, everybody was kind of drawing this head and shoulder top. And I actually had people saying that in the comments yesterday. They said, well, what happens if we rally up and start to pull back? Wouldn't that actually be a head and shoulder? And yeah, I mean, technically it would, but we can see that we pretty much instantly went up into that next impulse. So it was easy to tell that this wasn't going to be a head and shoulder, considering the fact we just pretty much went straight into a breakout, flipped the prior high as support, and then that's what took us that final move. So if we're going to end up seeing something similar, what we would expect going into this next impulse is arguably the same sort of thing, where what we want to see here is a quick impulse. We don't really want it to go and take all this time reconsolidating. We would like to see this ending up into this final blow off top. And I really do lean towards this outcome being next in line. Like I've stated many times, I've been drawing a top all the way here at $48,500 since we were just barely making the first impulses. I said where once we got above 25K, I said most likely we're going to see an impulse that takes us back up to our first lower high of the bear market. And I still firmly believe that. The fact that we've done nothing but hold support of this 25K level, and we've now spent half a year consolidating on that level of support, I do believe that this is the early stage of a foundation that's going to lead us into that final impulse to complete the very first impulse of the cycle. Because, you know, guys, after this impulse, I do expect that we're going to have to go through a period of reaccumulation in the same way that we've always done. The difference being, if we're looking at prior cycles, all of our prior cycles had almost the same type of uptrend where it was just higher highs and higher lows. We didn't make huge impulses, but they were quick impulses and then pretty much instant sell-offs back down to that trend. And that was kind of the foundation that we saw in 2016 and 2017. It was the foundation that we actually saw in 2012 and 2011, depending on where you're drawing it. But we saw kind of the same sort of thing. Two quick impulses, always coming back down to retest that mean trend line. And that was what we saw leading into 2019. And this is where things got a little bit different. We only spent 3 months in an accumulation, and then we instantly broke out all the way up to one of the biggest impulses, actually the biggest impulse that we'd ever seen. And what we're seeing right now for Bitcoin, in my opinion, mirrors a lot more similarly to what we saw in 2019 than any of the prior cycles. And you can draw the argument that this is also kind of just doing that same sort of thing here. And, you know, you can see that we do have a pretty consistent uptrend throughout. But in my opinion, I believe that this uptrend is ultimately going to be taking us to this final blow off top. And this is why it pays to be early, because when Bitcoin makes this final leg up, this is where I think altcoins are going to shine. Now, let's talk about the altcoin cycles, map out some of my favorite ones so that you guys are able to understand what I actually think is playing out and what's going to be going and what's going to be happening over the next few months. So first one on the list today is going to be Chainlink. You guys know I love Chainlink. This is actually my biggest altcoin holding next to Ethereum. I really firmly believe in Chainlink and always have, basically since, you know, early 2019 when I first started buying this. I've been watching Chainlink because when we're looking at Chainlink, we have to understand DeFi doesn't exist without it. And so we watched what happened with Ethereum and how much value Ethereum brought with ERC20 tokens. And I believe that Chainlink is going to do the same thing, but with DeFi as a whole. There's going to be staking that's announced. There's going to be some good things coming for Chainlink, and why we would actually expect to see why we would expect to see the supply get locked up and actually create less selling pressure. So when we're watching Chainlink, there's a few things that I absolutely love about this chart. Reason number one, what we saw was your standard ABC correction, and then at the bottom of wave C, we instantly bottomed and have gone sideways for over a year. If we're looking at exact time, from the low of capitulation to where we're at today, we're sitting at just under 500 days, 497 days to be exact. Now, I saw somebody post in the comments, or maybe it was on my Twitter, I can't remember where, but they were talking about this being a wave 4 correction, and I think that they were drawing it like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they were expecting we'd see one more final wave 5 down. And the reason I don't think that's the case is because of the fact we've literally spent 500 days accumulating in this price action. And not only that, but if we go to a log scale and we zoom out, our low of this cycle was exactly 4 years from the last cycle low. So when we're talking about 4-year cycles, this thing perfectly followed one. So I don't find it likely in any sort of sense that these are making a lower low, because we saw a completed 4-year cycle. And if you even draw the low being this wick here after FTX, it lines up even closer. It's actually exactly 4 years of duration. So when we're looking at Chainlink, Chainlink's like one of the only altcoins that actually did a 4-year cycle. And the fact that after the exact low of that 4-year cycle and projected bottom, we've gone sideways for over a year straight. There's too many reasons for why this isn't going lower and why this is the bear market bottom. And so I see a lot of people still leaning on the fence of, are we going to get that lower low? Or is this actually the bottom? I'm kind of skeptical. I already lost so much money in the bear market. If I buy now, I might not have anything if we go lower. And because of that, most people are just not buying right now. And, you know, they're going to end up missing out on this rally. Because when we're looking at Bitcoin, if Bitcoin's going to have this final impulse up to $48,500, we're going to see all of these altcoins finally break out of these accumulation range. And with Chainlink, this is one of the tighter ranges that we have inside of the market. We're going to draw this down a little bit lower here, make it red. Chainlink has one of the tighter ranges in the entire market. And the fact that once we finally get that breakout, and what I'm watching for is once this impulse actually flips this resistance here, I think that at the minimum we're going to $19. But if Bitcoin makes that big impulse upwards of 48,500, I really won't be surprised to see Chainlink go all the way up to about 30 bucks. And I don't think that that should be, you know, I don't think that that should be something that you guys are in complete denial about by any means. Because like I've stated, guys, almost 500 days of accumulation going sideways. These are long-term ranges. These are support floors. These are not distribution before we go lower. And what we're looking at in comparison, in my opinion, with what we see with Chainlink, we can look at ETH in the last cycle as a prime, example of what that consolidation actually looks like. With ETH, it was a little bit more volatile as far as the impulse that we saw. The range was much bigger. It wasn't quite as tight with Chainlink, but the time was the same. From peak low to peak low was 450 days. So if we actually go to 500 days, which is basically where we're at right now with Chainlink, that was already the bottom, and then we actually started the next leg up. And so 500 days worth of accumulation was how long ETH took, pretty much, to the point of us flipping the range highs as support, and then that's what led us into that final impulse. So when we're looking at Chainlink today, we have to remember that 500 days is a significant period of time to be going sideways. We can't be fading this and expecting that this is just going to go lower when how many different attempts at this support floor have we had, with most recently this one failing once again. Every one of these sell-offs back down to support has resulted in a bear trap. And I firmly believe that, the 80+% correction that we saw from the highs is plenty enough. 90% from the high to the low. I'm not thinking that we're going to go lower. In fact, all the people that are expecting lower are really going to miss out on a huge opportunity by accumulating early. Because what we're looking at here on a big picture, if we're looking at ETH, ETH in the last cycle, as small as the last cycle was in comparison to prior ones, ETH went all the way into a new all-time high. And based off where ETH went, we'd be looking at like $100 per Chainlink. And that's a huge, huge, huge move. If we're sitting at $6.78, you're going to be looking at over a 10x. And I firmly believe that this cycle is going to be going up way more than any of the prior ones. And when we're looking at Chainlink on a big picture, all Chainlink has ever done is completed a 5-wave impulse. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then our bear market was the very first ABC correction that we ever saw. So when we're looking at what happens next, going into our next cycle, Our next cycle is a wave 3. Wave 3s are the biggest. They're the most impulsive, the most volume comes into them, and I don't find it coincidental with what Chainlink is doing, basically the backbone of DeFi as a whole. A wave 3 impulse, in my opinion, is going to see Chainlink going up to levels most people aren't even going to be expecting. In the last cycle, I talked about a $500 to $1,000 Chainlink, and even though we didn't end up getting that and we only peaked at like 50 bucks, I think that this next cycle is going to be the one where we do see that. And of course, I can sit here and say that we're going to go to this price, and at the end of the day, nobody really knows. But what I can tell you guys is last cycle was so much lackluster in comparison to any of the other ones. You guys got to remember that this is my 7th going into my 8th year of the crypto. So I've been through a few different cycles. This is my 3rd one. And what I have seen in every one of the cycles was unique in their own way, but it was all very consistent with how much the markets went up. The last cycle was peanuts, literally peanuts. And people are going to make the argument, well, that's because there's more money involved. Well, realistically, if there's more money involved, then the ROI should be bigger because there's more money flowing around. And I think that with the pandemic and all of the crap that was going on in the last cycle, it's so many reasons why we didn't see the same type of bull run and why it was kind of small. This cycle is the one that makes up for that. And I firmly believe that that last cycle was the build-up phase before this one, where we're going to see one mirroring a lot more consistently to what we saw in 2017. Now, there's a lot of different cycles that we can look at. Another one of my favorites is actually Solana. Now, with Solana, it's kind of in similar territory as Chainlink. The only difference is when FTX collapsed, obviously this made a lower low because this was, one of the focal points of FTX. They're big time investors of FTX. So when FTX collapsed, this one saw a big sell-off. But it was actually one of the bigger buying opportunities that we had. Most people were too scared to accumulate Solana, but most people were too scared to accumulate Ethereum back in its first bear market when it went all the way to $80. I remember watching it go to $80. Everybody was so in an uproar. Everybody was in so much uproar over the fact that the ICO bubble had popped. Ethereum was going to zero. And then it was almost the exact same emotions that we saw with Solana. And I don't find it coincidental that when we compare the two cycles, they look almost the same. And this is what's going to happen every single one of our cycles. Every cycle, you're going to see certain altcoins that outperform follow the same sort of similarities in structure. And we saw that in the last cycle to a T. The same sort of blow off top happened in ETH as well as Solana. Both cycles looked almost the exact same. Even in the bear market, the lower high was the same. And then that led us to this kind of final capitulation. And now the reaccumulation in our new bear market. Now the reaccumulation in our new bull market is a little bit different, but you can't expect every single cycle to be the same. The fact that it already looks this identical, to me is, that's enough. I mean, geez, it doesn't take a genius to see, oh my gosh, these cycles follow each other, right? So that's what the point I'm trying to get at. When we're looking at Solana, it's following ETH almost identically. And then also, if we come down in here, one of the great things about Solana is the fact we saw this first impulse, we got this ABC correction, and now all we've really done since then is make another impulse, and this is a wave 1 of 3. So I think that what comes next, wave 3 of 3, and then wave 5 of 3. And this is what is going to be coming in this next impulse. And so if we're looking at Bitcoin making this final run up to 48,000, Solana and all of these altcoins are going to be doing the same thing. I don't think that Solana is going to go all the way to the top of its lower high, because keep in mind that Solana's lower high and Bitcoin's lower high, these were the same points of time in price structure. And the same thing with, Chainlink. This lower high is all the same. They were all happening at the same time. There's a reason why they follow each other. Now with Solana and altcoins as a whole, I don't expect that they're going to be going all the way back up to their lower highs like I expect with Bitcoin, because Bitcoin will always lead the cycles. In the last cycle, when Bitcoin made this big run up to the 618, all of the altcoins basically did half of that move. With Bitcoin, when we're comparing the two, Bitcoin went to the 618, and when we're looking at Ethereum, it didn't even hit the 236, right? So when we're looking at all of these altcoins, we have to remember that they're probably not going to go to the same sort of levels that Bitcoin did. But the thing we also have to look at is the Elliott wave count. What we're seeing here what we saw off of the lows was our first one wave impulse. That was followed by an ABC correction. We finished that. And then instantly after, we got another impulse. The difference is this is a wave 1 of 3. We've talked a lot about this. I'm going to take the same chart back over, and we're going to be taking another look at this because in my opinion, this is what's telling us the trajectory of the market. Remember, right here, this was our first impulse right here, and then an ABC. And if you guys notice, what we end up seeing after is this second, wave 1 of 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is the next impulse that's coming. But the difference is Solana is right here. We just finished wave 1. We're inside of wave 2 right now, in my opinion, at the bottom. And this is about to start that next 3-wave impulse. And we can see that, clear as day. It's very obvious to tell. We have all of our Elliott wave structure. We have the first impulse. We have this ABC right here. And then after, we get our wave 1 and a wave 2. 1, 2. So all we're waiting for is wave 3, 4, and 5, which in my opinion is coming next. And we can actually use Fibonacci as a guide for targets. Our minimum target for this next impulse is $48. And so I believe that where we're going next for Solana is $48. Probably see a pullback, come back down to retest basically pre-FTX collapse, this level at about $38. And then we still have another wave 5 to go. And that's what I think happens in this next impulse. We're just in the early stages of this bull run, basically. And so after we get our next impulse, we will expect to have another correction of some kind. Depending on this impulse, it can get decently parabolic. Our minimum target for this impulse, based off of the very first one that we saw, we have to go to at least $44. But the way that the Elliott waves are looking, we're going to be going upwards of about 60 to 70 bucks. And so I say this stuff because right now where we're at is the very bottom of the bear market. And so now is the time, guys. You have to see the long-term vision or you're going to miss out entirely. Now there's a couple other altcoins I want to talk about because these are two of my favorites. Now Metis DAO is one of my favorites and Curve DAO is one of my favorites. All of these cycles are in different territory. If we're looking at Link, we never made a lower low. We've made an impulse, and we're about to be breaking out. Same thing with Solana. Now with Curve DAO, this did make a lower low. So some of these altcoins are in a little bit different territory where they ended up making kind of a lower low below the mean support that we saw. But this doesn't change anything. This is actually more similar. This is actually more correlated with your standard market cycle than even any of the other altcoins are. And I'm going to share with you guys what I mean. So when we look at Curve DAO and we actually overlay the Wall Street cheat sheet, this is the standard way that it's going to follow. You get the blow off top, and then we start this big ABC correction. And then at the bottom of the bear market, we see capitulation, which is right here. We see anger, which is right here. And then we see depression, which is the final low where it drags lower, makes a lower low below capitulation and anger. And then that's what basically marks the bear market bottom. This is the emotional psychology, meaning most people are panic selling at the bottom here. Then we make this lower high, we make another low, that's anger. We make another lower high, and then this is where we bleed for that final lower low right there. It's the exact same chart. Exact same chart. It's unique in its own way, but crypto's just more volatile. All this was 5 waves up, ABC correction back down, and now we're at the very low point of the bear market. This is depression, guys. This is literally depression. It's all the same crap. I hope that you guys are understanding what I'm saying because I try and make it simple for everybody, but it's the same chart. I mean, where we're at right now is the bear market bottom. This doesn't get any better than this, guys. I know it's scary. I know that nobody wants to buy right now. I know you're all losing money, but here's the thing. This is where the money is made because we're going to watch these markets go up, make these big breakouts, and make these big corrections, and it'll look something like this. This will be the disbelief phase that we're getting into next. And so I tell you guys this because I made more money in this period of the market cycle than ever before. $500 in select altcoins that end up making big runs is enough to make 6 figures, 7 figures, even 8 figures in the right investment. I've done this for myself. I've seen people make way more money than me that, I just watch in the market. And I want you guys to be able to capitalize on it as well. Now with Metis DAO, it's literally the same chart. It's just a little bit more volatile. This final lower low is the same thing. Capitulation, anger, depression. And I firmly believe that once this new cycle takes off, there's going to be a lot of profit to be made, and you're better off accumulating now because this truly is the bear market bottom. So if you guys found value in this, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these updates. If you guys want to join the Discord server, see what altcoins I'm investing in, which ones I'm buying right now, links are in the description for that as well. Thank you guys so much for the support. And with that being said, I'll catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.